Welcome to the North Central Region Aging Network webinar series. We offer webinars on the first and third Fridays of each month at 10 a.m. Central Time. We are a cohort of gerontologists and aging-related extension professionals that are interested in enhancing and increasing knowledge on various aging-related topics. I'm Suzanne Bartholomew. I'm an Extension State Specialist in Family Finance at Iowa State University, and it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Dr. Sarah Francis. She's here today to talk about Stay Independent, the Healthy Aging Series program. And she is an associate professor and state nutrition and wellness extension specialist at Iowa State. She's a registered dietitian with 20 years of experience, both locally and internationally. She works in areas of nutrition and health education, programming, and material development. Her research and extension work focuses on determining to what extent theory-based, unique and innovative nutrition and health intervention strategies can increase awareness, knowledge, and adoption of health-promoting behaviors in older adults and underserved audiences. She evaluates these interventions through long-term community-based studies using a balance of qualitative and quantitative methods. She has worked as a PI and a co-PI on numerous USDA and state-funded projects, and she's currently completing a 3-year term as the chair of the USDA Multi-State Research Group. The title of their project is Changing the Health Trajectory for Older Adults Through Effective Diet and Activity Modifications. She's an active member of the American Society for Nutrition, Gerontological Society of America, and the Society for Nutrition Education and Behavior, where she served as the chair of the Healthy Aging Division. So I, again, invited her to share her programming or program, Stay Independent, and she's going to tell us about the content of it, the format, the delivery, and some outcome data that's associated with the programming. We'll end the webinar discussing future directions of the program. So Sarah Francis, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Suzanne. Happy to be here and excited to speak with everyone about what Stay Independent is and the success that we're having with it in Iowa. So a little bit of background. Stay Independent was designed initially as mini online lessons for Iowa State University's Midlife and Beyond initiative. And so the original purpose of Stay Independent was to provide community residing older adults with research-based nutrition and wellness information to increase their familiarity with the topics that we discussed and increase the likelihood of them trying at least one of the recommended lifestyle changes discussed during the lesson. The long-term goal when I was working on developing Stay Independent was to expand it to be an interdisciplinary aging program, which is why when you look at the series title, there's nothing about nutrition and wellness in it, and that was intentional. So in Iowa, there's going to be twice the number of people over the age of 65 by the year 2040 compared to where we were in 2000 and even in 2010 if you look at this slide. So the blue counties are those counties with 20% or more of the population age 65 and older, and you'll see by 2040 that's going to be the majority of our state. And so it's really important as a community health educator, community nutritionist, that we provide them with nutrition education and other education that provides them with the skills needed to help them remain independently living in their communities. By 2035, it's estimated that there's going to be more people age 60 and older than there will be children under 20. So again, it's very important that we, in extension, that we start thinking about those programs that can help those older adults remain independent and thriving and have a high quality of life. So Stay Independent is based on nutritional assessments that were conducted in 2012 to 2013. Nationally, up to 1 out of 2 older adults, community residing older adults, are at risk for malnutrition. So malnutrition increases the risk of hospitalizations, it increases the length of hospital stays, and it increase one's hospital bill from $2,000 to $10,000 per day, depending on how malnourished they are. So in 2012 to 2013, my research team and I conducted nutritional risk assessments across the state with 300 community residing older adults age 60 and older. We used the mini nutritional assessment tool, which is the gold standard for community-based nutritional screening. It's a global assessment, so we look at nutrition behaviors, activity behaviors, we look at anthropometrics, and we also look at psychosocial outcomes. And what we found is that almost a quarter were being defined as at risk for malnutrition or malnourished, despite the majority being classified as obese or overweight based on BMI. Um, Almost half were eating less than 3 meals a day. Often were told by these participants that they were skipping meals because they were told they needed to lose weight. And so that was an easy way for them to lower their calorie intake. When we compared our normal group, those who were not at nutrition risk to those who were at risk, there's 4 issues that came up. They were not eating 3 meals a day. They had lower intakes of protein-rich foods like legumes, egg, and dairy. They were not eating the recommended amounts of fruits and vegetables, and they were not drinking adequate fluids. We also, based on other literature that we were reading, learned that older adults are not meeting their physical activity needs. And so you might be like, well, what's that have to do with nutrition? Well, when we see that they're not eating protein foods and they're not being physically active, that's increasing their risk of sarcopenia, which is an increasing issue with a public health issue among older adults. Sarcopenia is age-related muscle loss, which can increase their risk of falls. It can increase their risk of disability, which lowers their ability to remain independently living. And so based on these topics, I started thinking about how can we address it through extension. One way with the Stay Independent program, because the long-term goal was to make it interdisciplinary, I used the whole person wellness model as the theoretical base. And so the whole person wellness model includes 6 dimensions of wellness: physical, emotional, social, spiritual, intellectual, and occupational. According to this model, physical wellness recognizes the importance of physical activity while encouraging nutrition and diet. Emotional wellness embraces one's ability to form interdependent relationships. Intellectual wellness assists people in expanding their skill set. Social wellness supports better communication with others and the making of healthy choices and helping one community. And then financial wellness, if you think about it, is underlying in all of these issues, because if one does not have the financial resources to support independent living and are food insecure, it's going to impact all areas of this wellness. So even though financial wellness isn't identified as a dimension of wellness, here at Iowa State University, we do think of financial wellness as being part of this model. So the target audience for Stay Independent is adults age 60 and older. Since we've initiated providing this, we have had people in their 50s who are participating, and the content is still relevant to them. And so although it's been designed for those 60 and older, we are including those between 50 to 60. Oftentimes they're the spouse or the partner or someone else who is attending. We do recommend that it be provided to someone who is community residing, not those living in long-term care facilities or assisted living facilities. And that is because they need to have autonomy over the choices they are making. If someone is providing them a meal, then they do not have autonomy over the food choices or food selection purposes. They may not have autonomy over how active they are allowed to be if they are not independently living. The areas, the groups with whom we work most are congregate meal sites, senior apartments. These senior apartments are often those enrolled in the Housing Voucher Program, sponsored through the Older Americans Act, or formerly known as Section 8 housing, retirement communities, caregiving support groups such as Powerful Tool for Caregivers, churches that have older adult social groups, and community centers that have older have programming specifically for older adults. We have found that working with ready-made groups really helps our recruitment efforts. We have offered Stay Independent through our county offices. That has required, word of mouth, newspaper advertising, flyers, and things like that. But if we have a ready-made group, then they already have that social support network that they're with. There's that rapport within the site, and so we find collaborating with these venues has been very advantageous for us in Stay Independent. The original 4 nutrition and wellness lessons were created using 2 formats. We did a mini lesson format and an in-person format. The mini lesson formats were pre-recorded and just a surface level discussion on the topics that I previously mentioned. And it can be facilitated by non-nutrition and wellness specialists. So our specialists may train somebody within their county to go to a meal site to provide this video lesson and facilitate a discussion using a facilitations guide. The in-person lessons are more in-depth. They provide interactive activities to promote learning, and we often do a taste testing if relevant to the topic. And these are only provided by nutrition and wellness specialists because it's going more in depth on the topic. We want to make sure that the person delivering the program has the content specialty or knowledge to be able to answer any questions that may arise. So here are the current available lessons. So the first 4, 3 meals a day, feast on fruits and vegetables, power up with protein, and exercise your independence. That was directly based on that 2012-2013 study that we did that identified these as areas of concern or increase in the risk of malnutrition among older adults. Once we started offering this program, and in other work that we've done with older adults, we kept hearing the request for cooking for 1 or 2. So we created a module. This is currently only offered in person, but we created a module called, or a lesson called Cooking for 1 or 2, and you talk about tips on how can we adjust our cooking for lower numbers. And so that was created in 2018, pilot tested in early 2019, and now it's offered as part of our regular Stay Independent curriculum. Another topic that has been based on the literature, we're seeing a higher need for it, and also just hearing those consumer requests for something regarding brain health. And so we are in the process of pilot testing a brain health lesson that will be offered through Stay Independent in probably summer 2020, maybe late spring 2020, after we finalize it. The Stay Independent is set up as a 4-week course, so they take 1 lesson a week for 4 weeks. And so now that we're up to 6 modules, they'll be able to pick and choose the 4 that they wish. So it doesn't build upon each one. They can pick and choose, and they're independently standing modules or lessons. So I'd like to share with you now some of our early findings. The findings that I'm going to be discussing were collected summer 2017 through this past May. So about 2 years of data. At the end of each lessons, participants complete a short post-pre evaluation based on the lesson that they did. On this slide, you'll see that I just shared a picture of the evaluation that someone attending the protein lesson would receive. And so it's a post-pre design, meaning that we're asking them to, that first question, the first and second question are asking them to rate their familiarity with the topic before they attended and now that they attended the question. We have 1 likelihood question and then 3 socio-demographic questions. The participants fill this out paper pencil, and then our nutrition and wellness specialist will enter the results into Qualtrics. So we have a statewide database. So the majority of our participants are white females who are older, between the ages of 81 and older. This is very reflective of Iowa's demographics for this age group. It wasn't a surprise. You'll notice that we do have a relatively higher number of those who were identifying as American Indian or Alaskan Native. We had a specialist who collaborated with one of the Indian reservations to provide nutrition education to at their meal site there, and that's why we're able to report higher numbers within that demographic. We used Wilcoxon signed rank test to determine to what extent the lessons impacted participants' familiarity with the lifestyle recommendation benefits discussed during the lesson. Familiarity within each recommended behavior significantly increased for each of the lessons. So we saw a significant jump for each of them. This slide is showing the eating 3 meals a day. So we saw about a 20% increase in those reporting being very familiar with the benefits of eating 3 meals a day at the end of after attending the session. With the produce benefits, we saw about a 30% increase in being able to, being very familiar with the benefits. With the protein benefits, you'll see that there is about a 50% increase in very familiar, and we have been finding this pretty common with the protein lesson, and that is because we treat it around sarcopenia. And so sarcopenia, like I said, is becoming a public health issue that older adults are just now learning about, and so they have responded well to this lesson. With physical activity, we saw about a 30% increase in being very familiar with the benefits associated with being participating in 150 minutes of regular physical activity during the day. Then in regards to the likelihood of making a recommended lifestyle change, we saw the majority of participants were saying that they were very likely to make at least one of the lifestyle changes recommended. A nice anecdotal story that we have is regarding the protein lesson. And so one of our specialists taught the program within a retirement community. And so this was a higher end retirement community. They had their individual apartments, but there was also essentially an on-site restaurant, a buffet style restaurant for them to choose from. And they offered 3 meals a day that they could go down, and there is a choice menu. So they were able to make those choices about what they consumed. After attending Stay Independent, particularly the protein lesson, a group from that class went to their nutrition director at the retirement community and requested that they reformat the menu for breakfast, because they were being offered essentially a continental breakfast with very minimal choices of protein-rich foods. So the participants advocated for more protein-rich foods and got it. And so the nutrition director actually changed the breakfast menu. So that's one of our stories that we like to tell about, they are listening to the information and they are applying it. For the cooking for 1 or 2, we only have the pilot study outcomes to share with you today. But what we found was it was pilot tested during spring 2019, and our participants for this course were mostly younger than what we saw for the original 4 courses. So you'll see that the majority were ages, ages 60 to 70 years, so about a third of the participants. And then again, they were white females, which is not surprising given our demographics in Iowa. Again, we saw using Wilcoxon signed rank test, we were able to detect a significant increase in familiarity with cooking strategies from pre to post, with about a 50% increase with those tips and strategies that we were providing. And then we also found that the majority of the participants were stating that they were very likely to make to adopt one of the cooking strategies that we recommended in that lesson. given the success of the Stay Independent series, I am working with two of our other specialists in the area of aging, Dr. Jill Lee and Dr. Suzanne Bartholomew, on creating that interdisciplinary approach towards aging. And so Dr. Lee is working on two new lessons related to the needs identified for family life, which includes future care planning and also thriving in place, or that remaining in one's home. And then Dr. Bartholomew, who's with us today, could speak briefly about the family finance, is looking at spotting, stopping, and avoiding scams, stretching your dollars, and also funeral planning, which those topics emerge during some needs assessments that have been conducted. Suzanne, would you like to speak more about the family finance?
Thank you. Yeah, I just popped on the screen. Did you see my, hey, all right. Yeah, I was really excited about the opportunity and your invitation to collaborate on this program. We, as you mentioned, used your needs assessments and your focus groups that you had conducted even last summer that had shown that older adults are concerned with money issues. And so we were able to, use that as a directive in terms of what direction to go. And then I also had 3 focus groups this past summer, really diving deeper into what are the financial issues that older adults would like to learn about. And the fraud module has been piloted and it's been developed, and it really focuses on the top consumer issues and vulnerabilities among older adults. And that really, I'm sure most of you have, well, you probably hopefully saw Dr. Strum's financial exploitation webinar a few months ago, and just know that this is really on the federal level, really on the just really on the everybody's radar, I guess, the Department of Justice and so forth. So the fraud module has been successful, and just like you had a great success story about your person, your group going and advocating to the director of nutrition. When I went and conducted the focus groups, the previous week had experienced the fraud module, and they came, several of them came with some of their mailing, their mail, like letters that they had received that were clearly some bad actors that were trying to take advantage of them. And so, but they appeared to really be, as you said, taking in the information. Stretching your dollars module is something that we also identified out of those focus groups, and it's really going to be planning on unexpected expenses, periodic expenses, and then spending leaks, just where maybe people are spending their money where they could be doing a better job. And also some localized resources. There are a lot of financial resources that older adults are not taking advantage of, and so by localizing a resource guide for them, we're hoping that they will be able to lift their income level a little bit. The other topic that came out of our focus group was related to funeral expenses. We heard it over and over again that they were really interested in what are their, what are the Iowa laws on burial, what are the costs that are associated with burial and funerals, and then what are options for burial. So that is under development too. So the stretching your dollars module is developed, but it's being piloted, and then the planning for a funeral is under development. So we're excited about being able to collaborate, like I said, Sarah. And so it remains to be seen here.
I think the participants will really enjoy it too. So if any of you are keeping tally, that means that we're up, once the family life lessons and family finance lessons are fully developed and being implemented, we'll have a series from which participants can choose 4 out of 11 lessons to receive. And if there's a program that meets monthly, it may be something that they do more than once and be able to have a variety of lessons.
And that's what I was going to say. The modules that we developed, we completely followed your Sarah's format of the original program, which made it much easier actually to have a lesson plan to follow and a format to follow. And so the future directions, Sarah, I don't know, we haven't talked about what's your thought on if other states in the North Central region wanted to adopt this? So we didn't
You're
talk about
reading my
this,
mind.
yeah, before we
As an
got on.
extension, as an extension agency, you know, we are always open to sharing our materials. Each of the lessons, like I said, right now, only the original 4 have the mini lessons, the recorded lessons right now. But each lesson, we have a script that goes along with the slides, so the information being delivered across the state is consistent and the same across, regardless of educator. We have a lesson plan that maps out all the activities and all the supplies that you need, and we have promotional materials related to Stay Independent and also the evaluation. So if anyone is interested in learning more about the program, seeing our materials, please contact me. My information is on the slide, and we can look at the best avenues in which to share.
Great, thank you. And you taught me a new term today, the technical term for muscle loss. I'd never heard that before.
Well, yeah, it's pretty prevalent right now in the area of geriatric nutrition.
Ah,
Sarcopenia, yep.
man,
Eat
yeah,
more
that's a
protein and do some strength training to help maintain your muscle mass when you're aging. Yeah.
interesting. Great. Well, really appreciate your time today, and kudos on this program that you developed and the great outcomes that have been associated with it so far in terms of seeing the older adults really embracing some of the lessons that you've been sharing. Please, those of you that we have questions, the previous slide, hopefully you caught Sarah's contact information, or you can get in contact with me from the NCRAN website. My contact information is there. So if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. And we really appreciate, we are tracking the quality of our webinars and the number of people that are attending, that kind of thing. So we'd appreciate it if you could complete an evaluation. And I think next slide is going to be our next webinar coming up is in November, and it's another colleague of ours from Iowa State who is a associate professor in human development and family studies with a aging specialty. And so she's going to be talking about her translational research in family caregiving that looks at parents and children's relationships. And yeah, so that will be a live webinar on November 1st at 10 o'clock. So we hope to see you there, and enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks for being with us.